Hi, I'm Bob Moreni from Mayco, and today we're going to be talking about brushes, the different types that we carry, and care and use of them. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is basically different types of hair. Now, there's so much variation in types of hairs that are used in brushes, from the real good bristles to the cheap ones. Now, of course, always the quality of your brush is going to make the difference in the quality of your work. So if you were going to go buy a brush at the dollar store or any little main box stores that sell all kinds of various supplies, you're not going to get the same thing as if you buy brushes from a good quality ceramic studio. These brushes are made specifically for the use on ceramics, as opposed to other areas of different types of products as wood, plaster, plastic, whatever it might be. So remember, your brush is your work. It also is a tool, and you want to take care of that tool. And tools can be expensive. So it's also good to take care of them. So the first type of brush we're going to talk about today is our glaze brushes. The different types of glaze brushes that we offer here at Mayco, and hopefully you will be able to learn about them and then also how to use them. So the first one we have here is our, it's the number BB110, and this is our basic glaze brush. And this is the least expensive one that we do have. It's a mix of different types of hair, both natural and synthetic. So it's a fairly good brush to start with if somebody's just getting started and they don't want to spend a lot of money. So this is a good one here. The next type, which we have two different sizes on, are our oval mop brushes. Now, a lot of people do prefer to use a mop brush as opposed to any other type to apply glazes with. They do hold a lot of product and put a lot onto the surface, but you also have to be careful that you can wind up putting too much on. So you want to take your time in properly loading and flowing the glaze on the piece. Next, there's our soft fan brushes. Now, these are made from goat hair, and they're very soft, just as they say, and we have different sizes and styles in the handle. We have a large one here, a number 8, in the soft fan. The most popular is the size 4, which most work is done with. We also have a number 2, which is for smaller areas. Then we have our mixed blend of bristles in a fan shape, which is also very good. This one's extremely good for stoneware surfaces, or some types of glazes, even like crystal glazes, where you got that chunk of glaze in there that is very rough and can destroy a brush real easily, especially the soft fans. And then we have the soft fans in an acrylic handle, as opposed to a wooden handle. So what I need to explain to you right now is the basics of the brush. So you have several parts of a brush, and these are really important to know. You have the hair, which is of course on the end. You have the heel of the brush, which is the bottom of the bristles. Then you have the metal part here, which is the ferrule. And then the ferrule, which is attached to the handle. Now, whether the handle be an acrylic handle or a wooden handle is a matter of preference. But different things can happen to them. So we're going to talk about that here right now. The main thing is, when you use a brush, you should always dampen the brush to begin with, and then you want to squeeze all the water out of the brush and then squeeze it in a paper towel or a cloth to get out the excess water. This helps in the glaze or any other product absorb into the bristles easier, and also for mainly cleaning it at the end when you're done. When you're finished working with your product, you want to clean your brush really well. One of the first things you don't want to do is take your brush and jam it into the bottom of a bowl of water, which I have here, and really jam it down. Now the reason for that is what happens is over time of jamming that in on the bottom, that ferrule is going to cut the bristles of your brush. And before you know it, you got all these little stubby things sticking out of here at the bottom and very little hair on the end because you've cut them off over time. And that's not a good thing to do, especially if you want to keep your brushes for a long time and work with them. The best thing is a swishing motion of your brush in the water so that you can get the color out. You can go up and down a little bit, but just do not pound it to the bottom. You can tap the side of the bowl or container, whatever you have, up further onto the ferrule area, and that will also help. The other way is take it to a sink and run it under some running water and work it out. And work with your fingers to help massage that color out of the brush. So something similar to as you would do washing your hair. Now don't laugh at me because I don't have any much to wash at all, but you know what I mean, I'm sure. Now as far as the type of cleaner, you want to use a type of soap that's mild. Usually a bar soap like Ivory or something like that is very good to use. The one thing you do not want to use is a soap or a dish soap that contains a lot of degreasers in it, because that's going to take all the oils out of your brush and eventually it's going to wind up splitting, having split ends just like your hair would if you had a rough shampoo you're using. You just want to be conscious of that you don't really ruin it. One of the most popular things right now to use for cleaning brushes is this product called Totally Awesome, and it's a very good all-purpose cleaner, and it works real well for the brushes to clean them by just taking a little bit and working it in the bristles and then rinsing it out. Now, I forgot in the beginning too, one of the things you first want to do when you start using a brush is to rinse it out, because all brushes have sizing in them, which is usually a form of a starch, and that is to help protect it in shipping, that it doesn't destroy the bristles, so they kind of keep together. And so you want to rinse that out before you start using your brush anytime. And so then when you're done with the cleaning of your soap and you've rinsed the brush real well, and then squeeze all the water out again and squeeze it in a paper towel or a cloth, and then you want to let it to dry. Now, in that purpose there, you want to make sure that you do not stand the brush upright when you go to leave it to dry. You want to have it laying down and let it sit overnight and dry on its own, and then you can stand it up in your container or however you store your brushes. But the main reason for that is just the same as leaving brushes sit in water, which is not a good thing. And most people, I am sure, have experienced problems, especially with the wooden handle brushes, where after a time or two, the ferrule will come off the handle of the brush, and now you've got two pieces in your hand. The other thing that it does is that the finish on the handle winds up cracking off, and then you're down to the bare wood. So the reason for that is, what happens is the water goes down the bristle, through the ferrule here, to the handle. The handle is raw wood on the other end here, that's inside the ferrule. And that wood, when it gets wet, will swell. And when wood swells, everything along with it is going to swell or be pushed out of shape or whatever. For example, the ferrule, the crimping that's on here will be expanded, and the paint on the finish, or as the finish of the handle, that's going to swell too, but it's got nowhere to go but crack. And then when the brush dries, that's when it'll come apart and then the finish will start flaking off. So it's a good thing not to leave them soak in water or to stand them upright in a container or whatever to dry, because you're still going to have water dripping down through here, and you don't want that to happen. One of the other things too is a lot of people will use some kind of a container. I know most hobbyists will use something like a Pringles can or something like that that has a lid on it. Yeah, that's great for storage, but you're trapping all the air, and the moisture that's in the brush is going to stay in there, and eventually they'll get moldy and they could rot in there. So it's not a good thing, especially to put the lid on it. If you're going to use it, do it without the lid, or make sure you have several holes in the lid so some air can get down into it so they can breathe in there. When you get a new brush, especially a lot of your rounds and your detail brushes, they have these little plastic caps type things on the brush, and that's also there for protection during shipping of the brushes or to the whoever's selling them, so that when you get it, that it's protected, that the bristles are not being crushed or whatever. So when you get the brush, take this thing off the brush and get rid of it. You do not want to keep it. You do not want to try to put it back on, because it never fails. You'll never get it back on the way it came when it was brand new, and you'll be cutting into the bristles of the brush and destroying them. And it's just a shipping thing. It's not for anything else. You could use them for decorating purposes, dipping it in some color and dabbing it on your piece or something like that as a tool, but remember, just get rid of them otherwise. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some other types of brushes. We have rounds, or pointed rounds as some call them, or as Mayco calls them. We have detail brushes, we have liner brushes, and we have shader brushes. So the first one we're going to talk about is the rounds, or the pointed rounds, and we have 3 of those. We have a number 8, a number 6, and a number 4. Now here is a good example. We took the plastic coating, little plastic sleeve off the tip of the brush here, and you can see that this is really stiff right now. So this is one where we would rinse it in water, squeeze it out, and then squeeze it in a paper towel before you would use it, or put it away. You also want to shape your brushes before you put them away so that they stay in shape. But it's so important to get that water out of the heel of the brush, because otherwise sometimes when you're starting to do some fancy brush work, you can tell all of a sudden you'll get this blast of water come down and it'll thin everything out or make a mess for you. So in the rounds, the pointed rounds, we have the 3 sizes in a wooden handle, and we also have them in a acrylic handle. Now the big difference is the hair on the wooden ones are more of a natural type hair, where the acrylic handle ones, the hair is a synthetic blend. Now you're going to ask, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is the natural hair will hold more color in the bristles as opposed to the synthetic blend. The synthetic blends will hold not as much, and I usually describe it as smear the color on. So you're not getting as much coverage of an area or layer-wise with the synthetic. They still work real well. They're very good even with acrylic colors to apply those, or in some cases, some people will say stains. As far as the types of hair, all the ones that we do have and that we sell, there are no animals harmed for that purpose. Now moving on, we have several detail brushes, various size, where we even have one here, you barely can even see that there's hair in it. And that's for some real tiny areas or eyes on some figures or whatever you have there. So we have 4 different size detail brushes that you can work with. The real small ones are called spotters because they're just for little spots, and they work real well. And again, there's a synthetic one there as well as 3 natural hair. Then we have our shader brushes, which a shader is a flat bristle brush. So the hairs are totally flat and cut straight across the top. And these are used for shading. And we'll be demonstrating that, how you can use these for different types of strokes and stuff. Some people like to use it for blocking in some color, which they can be, but you may want to keep 1 or 2 extra just for your shading purposes to have a good one. Okay, moving on. Now we have our liners, and we have multiple size liners from a 2.0 to a 0 to a 2 to a 10.0, and we have them both in the wooden handle and the acrylic handle. Now both the wooden and the acrylic have the same brush for those that like those types of handles, but it's the same brush for both of them. The number 6 script liner is a very long bristle brush. It holds a lot of color when it's loaded. Again, it's a type that you're going to load, pulling their color and lightly tapping it to open the bristle, flip it over, tap it again to get the color through the bristles, and then just roll it to a point. Very good to make an edge on a plate to go around the edge with having enough color to go around and make a nice straight edge to your plate or any area. Now, as far as the brushes, as for glazing, there's a proper way to load the brush. And one of the big things to do that you have the best luck with is to get your color mixed up, your glaze, and put it on a palette of some sort or a plate. And what you're going to do, I'm going to use the small fan here. So I'm rinsing it. I'm going to squeeze it out here. Take a paper towel, squeeze it again, because you'll be surprised how much water is in there. Now, the way to load, a lot of people try to load a brush is just dipping into and just getting a little bit of color on the brush. Well, that's well and good for small, teeny tiny areas. But when you want to apply glaze, the glaze has to be flowed onto the piece at an even pace onto the surface. You want to get the brush fully loaded. And the best way to do this is you pull from the puddle of the glaze, tap the brush down, and as you're tapping down very lightly, the bristles are opening up and you're allowing the glaze to go through them. So after a couple taps on one side, you flip it over, tap the other side, and then you pull from the puddle again and get a little bit more, and then you have a fully loaded brush, and then you're able to coat your surface really well, applying the glaze to the surface. This is the way you want to do it. It doesn't matter whether it's the fan, the mop, or the flat, inexpensive brush. It's the best way to do all of them. Now, you don't have to go to the very tip up to the ferrule, because the more you go up in there, the harder sometimes it is to clean. But as long as you come up here and you pull from the puddle to load, as opposed to scooping. Now, one exception is you take a crystal glaze and you mix them up really well and have your crystals. When you get it loaded this way, then you can come into the puddle, and this way you can pick up your crystals and apply them onto the surface, and it'll cover much better that way than trying to dip into a jar. Dipping into the jar, a lot of times you can contaminate your product, and it's not a good thing. This is the best way, and you can pour out what you need as much as you need as you go along. So remember, pull from the puddle, tap, and then just pull a little bit more, and you're ready to go. You don't want it dripping from your surface here to the surface of the piece. If you're dripping, that's way too much. The other thing too is, if you're right-handed, keep everything on the right that you're working here. If you're left, that way too. Don't have your pile of glaze over here and come scooping over here and then drip all the way along, especially if you got a plate or something, and now you've got drip marks all through the surface there. So now we're going to try to show you some just basic strokes. We're not going to get into something really heavily detailed and all. That comes with practice and time. So first we're going to start off with using the pointed round. So again, we want to rinse our brush being new, squeeze the water out, and then squeeze it in a paper towel. So if you're right-handed, you want everything on the right. You got your water bowl, you got your paper towel here for a blotter, and then you have your palette with your color on it. So first thing we're going to do is just show the basic of loading. Again, we take the brush, come up to the puddle, we just pull a little bit of that color with the brush, tapping it slightly here, and you can see the bristles are opening up. Flip it over, just pull a little bit more, working that color into the brush. There's no need to go to the middle of the puddle to get more color. You just need to go to the edge of it and pull. So when you get it fully loaded, then you're just going to give a little twist, and you got a nice sharp point there on your brush. First thing you want to always do, which helps a lot, you have the writing that's on the brush. If you put that in your hand and hold that with the writing pointing upward, you will always have it in the right position for when you go to apply your color to your surface or to continue on with a stroke or a design. It makes things a lot easier, and especially then when you go to load with a second color, that you're able to remember it's always on the same side, so you're not putting it on opposite side and then have a big mess. This way you can focus on that. So the main thing to make a stroke is you want to start out, you want to hold the brush like a dart. It's the easiest way to describe it. You don't want to take it like this and scrub or whatever. You want to hold it like a dart so that you're able to have control. The other thing is, usually with brush strokes, you want the handle pointing to the ceiling that is straight up. Sometimes it's over the shoulder, but it's never out to the side or anything like that. Usually up or over. So you start straight up, you press, the brush will open up, you give a little pull and a little twist, and you have a petal. So straight up, press, pull, and lift. Now, that's the first way. Then you're going to give a little variation here. You're going to press, pull, and then give a little turn like a comma to get another shape. You do the same thing again, press, pull, and turn it the other way to make it the other direction. So that's just plain by itself. Now we're going to do it with the second color in the brush. So we load with the one color, and occasionally you will get a few loose hairs on a brand new brush, which these all are. And once that happens, after you use it once or twice, the bristles will stop falling out on you. But it's not that it's a bad brush, it's a natural thing. So once you have it loaded with the lighter color, now you're going to come over here to the darker color, lay the brush down and pull it along the edge there to get color on the other side. And then I like to take it and blend it over here a little bit. And sometimes if you want, just tap it off onto the side. Again, straight up, press, pull, and lift to the point. Okay, so load again with the light, a little bit of the dark, blend, straight up, pull, lift, straight up, press, pull, and lift. Okay, so that's the basic stroke that way. Now we'll try to put something together. We're going to reload again with the light green. Come up to the dark green, pull some through. Over here to blend. You could even turn it over to blend. And we're going to go the opposite direction now. So we're going to start where we're going to press, we're going to pull, and we're going to lift. We'll do another one the other way. Press, pull, lift, and then one in the middle. Press, pull, and lift. Now that one didn't quite get full, so being easy with an acrylic, you can come back and go right back over that and get that filled. Now we'll give a little stem straight up on the edge. Press, pull up the shading color. Then we're going to, and I always like to, when you're doing it, try to keep your shading color to the one side in most cases, or towards, have the lighter color towards where the light will be shining. So press, pull, and lift. So that's something a little different. We can try a multiple of some of them together. Press, pull, and lift. And we're going to take it now, flip it over, come the other way. So that's some of the simple strokes on a round. Now with the shader, we have a lot of other different strokes that we can make. So we're going to start off and wet the brush. We're going to switch water so we don't have green in our pink. So again, we'll pull the load with the lighter color, working the color through the brush, and then coming up to the dark. Now some people like to go in between here and be able to pull both colors and then blend them right here like that. That's another way you can do it. So there's a few different strokes here for the shader. You have one where you just set it down and you press, okay? Then you have one where you take it, you slide it over a little bit, and then press. You can take it the other way, slide over and give a little turn. You can do a Z stroke. You can do a little curve. And you could do Set it down, sit and what we call spin the brush to make a circle, which is great for cherries or grapes. We can do bamboo. So you start up here, press, stop, touch, press, pull, touch, press, touch. I know it's pink bamboo instead of green. And we could do a leaf. Just stand up straight, give a little turn to the brush. Depending upon how far you push it down is what's gonna, so like this, if you want it a little deeper, get a little more color there. So these are just some of the ways you can do this. You can press, pull, lift, press, pull, lift. Kind of like the way to make holly. Turn it around. And a lot of times it's always best to try to pick up your surface you're working on and move it around, because a lot of times you cannot work just flat on the table. So again, we're going to come out, in, out, and then we'll just come down the middle with the stem. There's another type leaf that you can just keep going back and forth, keeping the darker color on the outside. Didn't get it loaded enough. That's another one. Another one you can do is kind of just a stand straight up, press, pull, press, pull, and then you try to start getting smaller here, kind of looking like a fern. Like I say, these are just some basics. They're not full, real hard-on strokes. Another easy one to do is a basket weave, and that's just some small strokes with some tapping in between. Between here. Make a basket stroke. So a liner brush, the biggest problem people have with them is when they go to load them, they just dip that little tip in there into the color, and they got all this rest of this brush here and there's nothing there. So when they get that little bit and they come here on the surface, they're able to go so far and maybe a little bit more, and then that's it. And then they're re-dipping and back and forth. The big trick of the liner is the loading is you pick up a little bit of water on the brush, you come to your puddle and slightly thin it to make it inky and give a twist. So you have a fully loaded brush. With this load, you can make a nice long line. The amount of pressure is going to determine the thickness of the line. So you can do something where you're up and down, getting different size of the line. But in most cases, we're doing it to outline a design, say like a leaf, and then put some veins in it and the stem. And that's mostly what a liner brush is used for. At this point, I think we've got some of the basics done. The next time around, we'll be talking about our acrylic brushes for your stain work, for applying color, and also for dry brushing. And then we'll show you again on the overglaze brushes that we have. So, and as always, make it Mayco.